Hello, my name is Shivam Patel, and this is my demo for Project 4. So the goal of this project was to automatically create a new map instead of manually designing a new one. So I used cellular automata as the main procedural generation technique. So kind of jumping right into the code, I have this cellular automata map generator file, and it starts with the main function, which kind of controls the entire process. So I create a random seed, and I call my map generation functions in order. So create initial terrain, generating terrain using CA, generating the forest regions, creating starting areas, and placing the player bases. And at the end, I call this create XML function to save that generated map as map.xml. Then I have this create initial terrain function, which creates the initial map. So each tile is randomly assigned as either land or water, and the outer two tiles are always land. Then I have my generate terrain using CA function, and this is a main cellular automata algorithm, which I run 5 times. And for every tile, the count neighbors checks the 8 surrounding tiles and counts the water tiles. And based on that count, a tile either stays water or becomes land. This turns the random starting map into a larger, more natural looking area. I then call this remove small water tile regions function to remove any tiny water areas. Then I have this generate forest regions function, which I use to create the forest. So I randomly place trees on land and then run the cellular automata process about 3 times, and this kind of groups the trees into larger forest areas on the map. Then there's this create starting areas function, which creates the clear starting areas for both players on opposite sides of the map, and it also calls create path to create paths towards the center. Then this place player bases function is what determines where the 2 bases will go, and it calls place base for each player. And the place base function creates a town hall, 2 peasants, and a gold mine for each player. And down below we have some helper functions. So clear area is what creates a circular area for bases and paths. Count neighbors counts the nearby water or tree tiles for the cellular automata. This remove small water tile regions, and find water tile regions functions finds and removes any small connected water regions. Inbounds make sure the position stays inside the map, while copy map copies the updated terrain after each cellular automata generation. And down below I have all my XML functions. So first we have create entity, which creates the XML information for the building, units, and resources, while create XML tag creates individual XML tags. And then this create XML function puts everything together and writes the final map into map.xml. So overall, my program starts with a random terrain, uses cellular automata to make natural looking terrain and forests. It creates playable starting areas for the players, and then generates an XML map that the S3 can load. So now demoing this, I can hop over to main.java, which I call that cellular automata function file right here, and I can run this file, and we can see that as a randomly generated map pops up, we got the 2 player bases. So this one's going to attack here, and they defeat the other opponent, and the game is over. So this is my demo for Project 4. Thank you for watching.